Yes, Halloween. It's that wonderful time of year where the spider webs that I was too lazy to clean off suddenly turn into decorations.
Hmm. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next episode of the Schorr Manor podcast. This is Matt and Amanda Schorr here with you. And this episode is going to be all about trick or treat versus trunk or treat.
It's a very controversial topic, and we're going to be debating this really hardcore, right?
It is among people like us and people who are home haunters. So let's start with traditional trick or treating.
Traditional trick-or-treating, I think everybody knows how that works. You dress up in some kind of a costume, you go through your neighborhood, you go door to door. When the neighbors open their doors, you say trick-or-treat. They give you candy, or if they're, people that you really don't like, they give you raisins. I think everybody had that one lady in their neighborhood that did that, right? Did you have that?
No.
You didn't? Oh,
Never had that.
there was always that one lady in our neighborhood.
Oh, wait, yeah, we did.
Did you?
I forgot about that. Yeah, but they sell the little small,
Yeah,
fun-size packs of raisins.
Yeah, fun size. Yeah, what a joke.
Those,
To this day, I don't know if that lady was, she was either really annoying or an evil, twisted genius. But anyway, that's getting off topic here. That's basically what trick-or-treating was. And then, but there was also that one house where the super cool people were, where they gave you the full-size candy bars instead of little half bite-size ones that most people get. That place was cool.
that we never had.
You never had that?
Mm-mm.
Oh, that's too bad. But that's trick-or-treating, right? Anything else to that?
No, I think for the most part, trick-or-treating is a safe way to spend the Halloween holiday, at least where we live.
Sure.
However, in defense of trunk-or-treating, which some of you may not know what it is, if you don't, it's usually put on by churches, and all the cars line up, and they open their trunks, and kids just walk in a line, one right after the other, and get candy from each trunk, and people will decorate their trunks and also dress up in costumes and things as well. I think a lot of people like us are Halloween purists, and they only think there should be trick-or-treating.
Preferably, yes.
But, I'm going to, as Matt always says, play the devil's advocate here.
Which is ironic, all things considered.
Yeah. Because I was the kid who grew up in the country. Nobody trick-or-treated out there. The road was not safe to walk on in broad daylight, much less at night. To trick-or-treat, you literally would have had to have driven up the driveway to each house. I mean, we just didn't do that out in the country. So before trunk-or-treats, my aunt lived in a really nice neighborhood in Mayfield, and we would go there and walk the neighborhood there. So I think trunk-or-treating is a good idea for people who live in an unsafe neighborhood or out in the country or something like that.
I suppose, but couldn't people we'll just start with the country, because this is what happened in the neighborhood where I lived growing up. A lot of kids that were out in the country, they would drive in, and their parents would actually drop them off for the sign of the times. They would just drop them off, leave them there for an hour, and then come back and pick them up after they had done all their trick-or-treating through the neighborhood.
Yeah, well, you can't do that anymore. You have to walk with your kids.
That's true, and nowadays they do, don't they? 'Cause, we've seen them here a few times in our own neighborhood. A car drops them off and follows them from house to house.
Right, so I prefer the traditional trick-or-treating, obviously, because we like decorations. We have a lot of fun with it. You're very limited at a trunk-or-treat as to how much you can decorate, how much you can do. As a matter of fact, the first Halloween Matt and I celebrated together, we did a trunk-or-treat at my home church in Mayfield, and Matt actually carved 3 pumpkins.
Was it 3 that year?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
You carved Spock, a cross, and the Superman S.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it was just Spock. Okay.
Nope, it was 3. So, the first Halloween we actually celebrated together, we did the trunk or treat there, and it was fun. But I definitely prefer
it was fun, but
traditional trick or treating.
it was fun, but it had its frustrations as well.
Well, the thing about it is, at least where we grew up, so many people came. I mean, there were like between one and
2,000 people there.
And so it just became this endless line of people. It just never stopped. You didn't really get to enjoy the kids and their costumes. And even like seeing people you knew, it was just kind of like for 2 hours straight, it's just a give them candy and get them through kind of thing.
It was kind of like an assembly line, almost like a factory version of trick-or-treating.
Yeah, and I just, one of my favorite things about it is I love to see all the kids dressed up and get to talk to them and, make them think that I really think they are Supergirl or Spider-Man or whatever they're dressed up as. And to just see their faces light up when you say that. And I feel like at Trunk or Treat, you don't get to do that. I mean, maybe this is just the teacher in me coming out, but...
Yeah, and for me, for personal frustration, and this is the sort of thing that it's unavoidable, to be fair, but anytime you have an organized event like this where a bunch of people are putting something together, you're going to end up being constrained by what those people might think is or is not allowable. And as somebody who really likes to be creative and do his own stuff, I don't like to butt against a glass ceiling, so to speak. It's not what I set out to do, but it's prone to happening at an event like this.
Right. Well, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with saying, if you're going to be part of this, these are the rules you have to follow. We just, for Halloween, we like to make it our own and do our own thing. And a lot of the things we like, we wouldn't be able to do at a church function.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not that we're trying to talk bad about it. We're just saying, here at our house, we can do whatever we want.
And preface real quick, what we do is very PG rated.
Yeah. We don't do anything bloody or gory or scary. If you've been on Facebook and seen our pictures or have listened to our podcast about the movies we like, the movies I like, and especially our decorations ones, you'll know we're not gory and bloody and... we don't want people terrified of our house. But I do like gravestones, and I do like bats and skeletons and those kinds of things.
Yeah, we like, Disney scary, that sort of thing. It's kind of creepy, kooky, spooky kind of deal. You've got the Haunted Mansion. That's basically what we set out to be. Yeah, where you've got your fog on the ground, you've got your headstones, it's dark, you've got, kind of ghosts swirling around, but you don't have anything you don't have axe murderers, you don't have, serial killers prowling around in the alleyways by our house. It's pretty tame by all standards, typically. But it's just, it depends on the group that's organizing it. One group might look at our stuff and say, hey, no problem, everything's great. But then you have another group, just because different people have different tastes, and then that person in charge may look at what we do and say, no, no, no. Mm-hmm. Kind of like that angry email I got a while back for one of my columns about our house.
So, anyways, one thing I really like about living here is... a lot of the trunk or treats are not actually on Halloween night. So you can do that, and then you can also go and do actual trick or treating as well. Which is probably like what we will do with our son when he's really old enough to understand. We also do, if any of you guys live in this area, there's Fright on Franklin, which is kind of like a trunk or treat. To me, but it's a little bit different because it's so big.
It's almost like a cross between trunk-or-treating and traditional trick-or-treating, because you do go from location to location, but they're all out in front of their businesses
and lined up on the streets and everything. Yeah.
But to me, it feels very much like the traditional vein of trick-or-treating, because it's very community-oriented. And to me, that's what trick-or-treating is. I got on a soapbox on this in a previous episode that we did, but it's something I do feel kind of strongly about, that Halloween is one of the few remaining community holidays that people really still recognize across the country. Thanksgiving, Christmas, people get together with their families, they go inside the house, and that's really it. And that's nice for what it is. But Halloween is the one and only time that people open their doors to their neighbors, to the children, and I mean, I know it's just a quick little trick or treat, give them candy, and they go on their way. But it's one of the few things left, and I kind of feel like in our society with our advances in technology, and I know I say that on a podcast that the advances in technology make possible, but I think there's a risk how much we isolate ourselves from one another. And I just feel like trunk or treating, the issue that I do have with it is in so many places it's seen as a replacement for trick or treating because people think trick or treating isn't safe. And really, studies, evidence, research really indicates that trick or treating is actually not that unsafe. It's one of the safer times of the year almost in some places, in many places, as a matter of fact.
Well, there's pretty strict rules and regulations about it. And I'm sure that you would always find that one case that doesn't fit and that something did happen, which is why, I would say always walk with your children.
Yeah.
I mean, our son will never go trick-or-treating alone. But, yeah, I mean, because I know found this out last year, registered sex offenders actually have to keep their lights dark on Halloween.
Yeah.
So, of course, that's assuming they follow the law. But
Well, there's also what they call honesty by paranoia. And on Halloween, if you think about this, everyone's out trick-or-treating. Everybody in America knows that everyone's out trick-or-treating, so they know the community is like on the watch and more alert of things that are going on than any other time. So, most people, I want to stress that you're always going to have your extreme cases, but most people are most likely going to stay in line. They're not going to step out on, if they're going to try anything, it's not going to be on a big public holiday like Halloween.
All right, guys. Well, this was kind of a short episode. These are just our thoughts and feelings on trick-or-treating versus trick-or-treating.
I'm going to acknowledge that my feelings on trick-or-treating are rather self-serving because I want the trick-or-treaters to come to our house and see all the hard work that we put in. All the people that out in the county who might not otherwise do trick-or-treating, by all means, come to our neighborhood and do some trick-or-treating. I'm sure that our neighbors would be thrilled at the extra trick-or-treaters that we would bring into this neighborhood by saying that.
So, anyways, let us know your thoughts and opinions about trick-or-treating versus trunk-or-treating on our Facebook page. Leave us a comment.
Facebook.com/Schorr Manor, SCHORRMANOR.
And whatever you do this Halloween, whether it's trick-or-treat, trunk-or-treat, or a combination of both, we hope you all have a fun and safe time. And as we say here at Schorr Manor, happy hunting.